This is Nicky Campbell, and this is the podcast of the 5 Live News Phone-In, where you have your say. We're live every weekday from 9 a.m, so don't phone or text in now.
This is a download from the BBC. To download other programmes or for more information, go online.
bbc.co.uk/5live.
This morning, what do you want to ask the leader of UKIP? The party got more votes than the Lib Dems in the last Euro elections. This is your chance to put your question to its leader, Nigel Farage, who's joined us. Good morning.
Good morning.
The number to call 0500 909 693. You can email breakfast@bbc.co.uk or text us on 85058. Not a great time to be a politician, really, is it?
It's been a very extraordinary couple of days. I have to say I'm not surprised by it at all. I mean, we've increasingly had a professional political class, people that go into politics who have never had a job in the real world and for whom it's a career, and that's one of the reasons why they've continued to pay themselves more. The other irony for me is that here we have a Westminster Parliament that has now given away virtually all of its lawmaking abilities to the institutions in Brussels. So really what should have happened is they should have taken quite a big pay cut, because pay should go with responsibility.
But they want good people to be MPs, so maybe what about the argument that they should actually be paid more so they wouldn't feel the temptation?
If they were governing the country, I'd agree with you. But given that 75% of our laws are now made in Brussels, we either need a massive cut in the number of MPs we've got in Westminster, or they should be paid far less. Or, of course, you could go for the UKIP solution and make it a parliament that's got real power, and then perhaps I might agree with you. Perhaps then we should pay them properly, but if we're going to do that, I don't think anybody out there objects to people being paid a salary. What they do object to is people fiddling the system, and clearly people have been fiddling the system, and it goes right to the very top.
They've been fiddling the system in your party, though, too, haven't they? So you'd have been at it.
There's a very big difference there, and the difference is that when we found two people who have broken faith with us and broken our rules...
Just to remind people what happened, Ashley Moat was convicted of benefit fraud, and Tom Wise has denied charges of false accounting.
That's right.
Laundering, yeah.
So we've had problems with two people, but what we've done as UKIP is no questions asked. We've kicked them straight out of the party, and that contrasts to the Tory and Labour parties, where they tend to try to brush these problems under the carpet.
If somebody had been convicted of benefit fraud, they would have been kicked out of either of those.
Well, that's a slightly different situation, and you know, we were lumbered with that, and in fact the guy never even took his seat as a UKIP MEP. But in the case of the accusation of fiddling expenses, what was clear to us is that he hadn't stuck to the rules as he should have done, and we as a party were totally uncompromising about it.
I'm sure you want to talk about policies. You have some interesting ones. A grammar school in every town, a flat tax, single low rate of tax for all that applies only to anything you earn over 10,000 a year, scrapping inheritance tax completely. So, you're a Thatcherite at heart, aren't you? You were a big admirer of Mrs. Thatcher.
I personally was a big admirer of Thatcher.
Are you a Tory, really?
I thought we were... No, I was a Thatcherite. I wasn't a Tory. And there is a very big difference. You compare Thatcher with Heath, they were very different parties. The one point about our tax policy that you didn't read out is that what we believe very strongly is that nobody should pay tax until they earn £12,500 a year, i.e. at about what the minimum wage is. The idea that we've got all these people who are on benefit and who, if they come off benefit, start paying tax such that they're worse off is absolutely mad. And yeah, we don't believe in high taxes, and I think this new 50p rate, meaning that big earners will be paying 61% if you include national insurance in, is likely to lead to the kind of brain drain that we saw back in the 1970s.
OK, well, it's good that you're here taking calls. Let's pass it over to our listeners. John in Southampton, and Simon in Middlewich, and Tim in Wales. Good morning, all of you.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello, Simon, on you go.
Hello, Nigel. I'd like to ask two questions, please. The first one is are candidates standing in all areas? Because I was disappointed to note that no one stood against the BNP and Tories in my local election. I'd have actually stood for UKIP if I'd known. And I believe Nigel's one of the few politicians who actually says what people think.
Are you a member of the party?
They don't. I'm not a member of the party, no. But they don't think he can win, so they vote tactically. Maybe he needs a strapline, yes, we can.
Is Nigel Farage the British Obama? This is the question.
That was my first question. Anyway.
Well, I'm the same age as Obama. That's at least a start. But can I just answer that first question for you? Listen, what we've got in 4 weeks' time is a European election where all of us in this country have a chance to vote. And yes, UKIP will be on every single ballot paper in the country. On the same day, we have county council elections in some parts of England, nothing in Scotland and Wales, and we'll be on about 50% of those ballot papers.
I could have stood for you.
Well, yeah, get in touch and we'll interview you and make sure that you conform to all our rules, and then be very happy to have you.
You could be the next Robert Kilroy-Silk. There you go. What happened with Robert Kilroy-Silk?
Well, he took himself too seriously. I mean, he was booted out by the BBC for the article that he wrote for the Sunday Express.
Was he right to have been booted out for writing that article?
I think, as with all things with Robert, he was right in many ways in what he said, but expressed it in such a way that sought the maximum sensationalism, if you like. I recruited him to UKIP. Mm-hmm. He did us a power of good, because before the Euro elections of 5 years ago, unless you were into politics, you perhaps didn't quite know what UKIP was or what it stood for. He made it a household name, but then after the election, he seemed to believe his own publicity, that somehow he was the man who was going to take over UKIP and take over the country and perhaps the world as well, and he became impossible to work with.
John in Southampton. Hello, John.
Good morning. I have a couple of points, and in a funny kind of way, I think this expense claim business that's hit the fan recently is good news for the British people, and it's good news for UKIP. Now, the reason that I put that to Nigel, whether he agrees, is because probably UKIP have been more or less the only party forever pointing out that the costly loopholes and expense abuses that can go on within the EU framework that we can't even possibly expect to know about, let alone have any kind of control over. And does he not agree that this gives us a huge platform? When I say we, I mean the British people.
Well, right.
In getting back, some form of control. Because once this goes wholeheartedly to Europe, I mean, how the hell are we going to influence who stays in, who stays out, and who's exposed?
Okay, Nigel Farage, I don't know how you're going to handle the hostility from the callers so far.
Well, I think you're right, because what is at the heart of this MP expenses row at the moment is the fact that this is public money. It's our taxed money that's being used in this way. And as you say, if you look across the water at the European institutions, however ghastly things are in Westminster at the moment, it is the mere tip of the iceberg compared with what is going on.
Is it worse south of the olive line, as they used to say?
It is just extraordinary.
Tell us about south of the olive line.
Well, let me give you an idea. I mean, tonight...
Southern Europe.
Tonight, there is a book launch tonight. Marta Andreasen, who was the chief accountant of the European Commission, who went there believing in the European project. She worked with Neil Kinnock. She found vast sums of money, had literally gone missing. And I'm not talking about, 20,000 quid for getting rid of the moles from your garden. I'm talking here about billions that has gone missing or was totally unaccounted for. She tried to introduce reforms into the European system. For her trouble, she was sacked by Neil Kinnock. And the reason that the caller is right is the fact that she's now standing as a candidate for UKIP, I think does put us on the side of the angels, in the sense that we want smaller government and we want less taxpayer money going into all these institutions.
You're saying something not dissimilar to Alistair Campbell, who was sitting in the chair beside you a little bit earlier on in this programme, who said, yes, it is bad, but compared to what happens in other countries, some of our... I'm not even paraphrasing him, but some might say our Westminster MPs do look like Mother Teresa of Calcutta.
But I think Alistair Campbell was missing a key point, and the key point is, when we compare British institutions with EU institutions, in both cases, it's us that's paying for them.